I'm gonna rank the best and worst types of film critics. Alright, starting off, we have the entertainer. These are the types of film critics that prioritize entertainment value over actual film criticism. And I'm not saying that these aren't legitimate film critics, it's just that entertainment value is the #1 priority when it comes to these people. And I would say the best examples of this that I'm aware of would be the awesome-tacular Jeremy Jahns and Penguinz0, aka Moist Critical. Sometimes you have film critics that just happen to be on YouTube, and then other times you have YouTubers who just happen to make movie reviews. Does that make sense? That's what the entertainer is. These are people who could probably make an entertaining YouTube video about any subject that they're interested in, but they just happen to pick movie reviews to do their thing. And this might be a controversial take among the hardcore cinephiles out there, but I'm actually gonna put the entertainers into the best tier. Is this the most educational and informative style of movie review? No, but it still does give you a pretty good idea on whether or not you should go watch the movie they're talking about. And most importantly, they keep you entertained while you're watching it. So yeah, I gotta put the entertainers like Jeremy Jahns and Penguinz0 up into the best tier, because if you can make a movie review about the Da Vinci Code or some shit actually entertaining, that's pretty impressive, to be honest. Like, I actually think that's more impressive than some film studies major telling me about the cinematography in the latest Jacques Tati film. And then next up, we have Funko critics. These are basically hype people more so than actual film critics. These are the types of critics that are always telling you whatever the latest flavor of the month blockbuster movie is, you have to go watch it. It's the greatest movie ever. It's a masterpiece. And they're telling you this while they have a bunch of action figures and Funko Pops in the background. And I don't think that these people have bad intentions by any means. They seem like pretty nice people. But at the same time, you're telling me to go spend $15 on the latest Hulk movie or whatever while you have a bunch of Hulk action figures in the background. I don't really know if I can trust you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, I don't know. I got to take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to put the Funko critics into the not my thing tier. It's just not really my thing, but I don't really have anything against it. And then next up, there is the contrarian critic. You know how whenever there's a universally beloved movie that pretty much everyone likes, but then you go and check the Rotten Tomatoes score and it's like 96% of critics liked it. The contrarian critics are the people who are in that 4%. Or when there's a movie that pretty much everyone unanimously agrees is a horrible movie, it has like 10% approval on Rotten Tomatoes, the contrarian critics are in that 10%. And I'm actually going to put the contrarian critics into the mostly good tier because I think it's kind of funny. I actually enjoy looking at these critics who just disagree with the consensus all the time. I find it kind of funny. I like that they don't really care. They're just like, fuck it. And it is kind of nice to actually have a different opinion sometimes, even if this person is being hyperbolic and trying to, generate attention from it. It's kind of funny. And it is also kind of nice to see the devil's advocate take. Now, I can't put them any higher than the mostly good tier because sometimes it almost feels like they're just doing it for attention and they're purposely just trying to spark controversy and go against the grain. But I don't know, maybe they actually are authentic. Maybe they are genuine. Maybe they truly just think differently than everyone else. They're out here in the fourth dimension. They truly just think differently than everyone else. These are the galaxy brains who understand film on a much deeper level that us peasants do not understand. I don't really know. And then next up, we have the video essayists. These are people who enjoy writing essays and reading teleprompters in their spare time. And I'm not saying that as a knock against them because these people put a lot of hard work into their reviews. They are very well edited, very scripted, very impressively made pieces of film criticism, and also they are often very informative, very educational. Some of the best pieces of film criticism I have seen come in the form of these deep dive video essays. So yeah, I'm gonna put the video essayists into the great tier. The only reason I wouldn't quite put them up into the best tier along with the entertainers is because I feel like sometimes the video essayists maybe take it a little bit too far. You probably don't need to make a 6-hour video about a 2-hour movie. And then sometimes you see these video essays that are unironically talking about the socio-political implications of Shrek or something like that. And it's not that deep, man. But overall, I do think a lot of video essays are super interesting. I think it's great. This is probably where you're gonna get the most in-depth film criticism that is also entertaining at the same time. So I'm going to put this into the great tier. And then next up, we have the art house critics. These are the types of people who are going to cover the movies that a lot of other mainstream critics don't really cover. They go to film festivals. They probably go to the theaters like 2 or 3 times a week. They're just workhorses. They're just always going to the cinema, watching all of these movies. I have to put them into the great category because you can just get so many great movie recommendations for them. They're just going to watch all of the movies that you probably haven't even heard of, and they're going to recommend you the good ones, and it puts it on your radar. I think it's great. You need art house critics out there to cover the stuff that isn't just the mainstream stuff. Yeah, that's how you're going to get movie recommendations for stuff that you might not have watched otherwise. Although with some of these people, I'm like, where do you get the money and time to always be going to the theaters? I don't know. I appreciate it though. All right, and then next up are the harsh critics. These are the people who build their entire reputation as a critic for being very hard to please, very harsh. These are the people who are going to rip into pretty much every movie they see unless it is a truly great movie. And I'm going to put the harsh critics up into the mostly good tier because I think you need harsh critics. Going to the movies is kind of expensive, and most people don't just have an infinite amount of time to go watch every movie that comes out. So it is nice having harsh critics to really filter out the stuff that might not actually be worth your time. Plus, a lot of harsh critics do give really good feedback on movies. I mean, obviously, I'm not a film director, but I'm pretty sure a lot of film directors would actually get a lot of use out of looking at some very harsh criticism and using that as constructive feedback. But I can't put the harsh critics any higher than that because at times they can be a little bit pretentious. And then next up, we have plot summarizers. These are the types of critics where you look at their movie review and 90% of it is just recapping the plot of the movie. And yeah, this is not my thing. I don't really see the point of it because if I haven't seen the movie, why would I want you to spoil 70% of the movie by just recapping the plot? And if I have seen the movie, well, then I already watched it. So I don't need you to just tell me what I would just watch. I already saw it. So yeah, I don't really get the point of a plot summarizer style of critic. I guess if there was a movie that you didn't really want to watch, but you wanted to get the basic idea of the movie, I guess this would be useful. But I don't know. It's not really my thing. I'm not into plot summaries. And then next up, we have the satire critic, and they don't really do typical movie reviews. Instead, what they do is some sort of funny skit or parody or something like that, and use that effectively in the same way as a movie review, but in a very entertaining and funny way. I think the best example of this that I'm aware of is this channel called Pitch Meeting, and if you haven't heard of it, go check it out. It's awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna put the satire critic into the best tier. A lot of the times they actually do have really valid criticisms of a movie, but they present it in a way that is really, really entertaining and funny, so I have to put that into the best tier. And then next up, we have the traditional critics. These are the critics who work for the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, you name it. Basically traditional mainstream media critics, usually making written film criticism. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I barely ever actually read any written film reviews. I just prefer watching a video. So I don't actually know that much about traditional film critics. I'll just put them into the mostly good tier because I do look at a lot of Rotten Tomatoes scores and Metacritic and stuff like that and just get the general gist. And while I'm probably not going to read their entire article, if I amalgamate all traditional critics into one score on Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, obviously it's not the gold standard. It doesn't really matter that much, but it does usually give a pretty good idea of whether or not a movie would be worth watching or not. For example, if a movie has 75% of traditional critics on Rotten Tomatoes giving it a thumbs up, that's probably a pretty good indicator. All right, this movie might be worth watching. Or if it has like a 70 plus on Metacritic, okay, I might go check it out. And then next up are filmmakers. This includes people who started off as critics and then later on became directors and filmmakers. Best example of that would be the French New Wave, Francois Truffaut, for example. These dudes just started off as critics, made their own movies, and then they just happened to be some of the most influential movies of all time. So you got to give them respect there. And this category will also include people who are already filmmakers, but occasionally they'll do a movie review here and there. I've seen Quentin Tarantino do a lot of movie reviews, for example, usually older movies. And yeah, I mean, I I gotta put the filmmakers into the best tier because one, they're actual experts on film. There's not just some dude who watches a lot of movies. No, these people have made movies. A lot of them have made really great movies, so they know what they're talking about. You're going to get great insights from them, and a lot of them are actually pretty entertaining. Like, say what you will about Quentin Tarantino, for example. I know a lot of people don't exactly like him, but go watch Quentin Tarantino review a movie. It's so entertaining to watch him review a movie because he doesn't just do the bog standard critic formula of, well, the cinematography was good and the editing was the acting before. No, he always just comes in with like some weird observation that you would have never thought of. And you're like, oh yeah. And he's just so passionate about it. It makes it really entertaining to watch. So yeah, I would say in general that actual filmmakers are usually the most interesting people to listen to review a movie. And you just got to give respect to the people who started off as critics and then actually made great movies after that. The French New Wave are some of the most important filmmakers of all time. So yeah, you just got to give respect to that. I have to put the filmmakers into the best tier. And then next up, we have the culture warriors. An example of a culture warrior style of film critic would be this channel called Nerdrotic. And I don't even know if it would be fair to even call them film critics because a lot of the times it seems like they're actually political commentators disguised as film critics. And if I had to say something nice about them, I guess I would say that some of them are actually really good at video editing, and in general, they seem to be really good at content farming and raking in the money. I mean, this is pretty much the meta right now when it comes to film criticism. Don't even try to review the movie. Just only talk about the most popular blockbuster movies and use that as an excuse to just pander whatever political message people want to hear. And yeah, I got to put this into the worst tier because I think it's pretty dumb if I'm being honest. A lot of the times their whole shtick is about Hollywood needs to stop inserting their political message into their movies. But I'm like, but at the same time, all of their movie reviews and all of the media that they put out is just only inserting the same political message over and over again. And also, they just seem to get offended way too easily, and that annoys me. So, all right, that's it. That's the tier list.